सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ समस्त जन कल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्ददामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः। ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः। ॐ श्री गणेशाय नमः। ॐ श्री सरस्वत्यै नमः। ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। Hari Om. Today we are starting the 14th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. The chapters we have covered so far in the 13th chapters, the first 6 talk about me, the jiva, the individuality, I, and how I am supposed to function in the world. And Bhagavan uses Arjuna as a model to teach us how to work with karma yoga, with service for the higher, how to work together with others in the yagna spirit in the 4th chapter. And then in the 5th chapter, how to even give up doership and stay identified with the self within. And staying identified with the self is not easy all the time. So Bhagavan in the 6th chapter, out of compassion, teaches us the path of meditation and how to connect with the self, not only in meditation in the morning, but throughout the day. So it is very important that everybody should spend some time in the morning in silence. As soon as we wake up, the first thing should be to stay in silence, and some meditation technique, whatever we use, to keep the mind quiet and get the day started very well. So that should become an essential part of everybody's life. I must get up in the morning and sit in silence and contemplate upon God. If you know some particular mantras or some particular verses, you can think about those. And any technique that you take, but it should quieten your mind and turn it inward to God's presence. And then from 7th to to 11th, Bhagavan Sri Krishna talked about who he is, who is this God. And in the 7th, he talked about creation and where all you can find Bhagavan. He said where all you can find me, which also he tells later on in the 10th. So he says, Rasoham Apsu, Apsu Kaunteya, I am the taste in the water, Prabha Asmi, Shashi Suryoho, etc. in the 7th chapter. And also creation was briefly mentioned. To some extent, creation was mentioned in the 7th chapter. Also, Jnanam and Vijnanam, how this knowledge can be applied in our life to make our life better. So that is wisdom, knowledge and wisdom. And 8th chapter talks about what happens after death. Everybody wants to know what happens after death. Where will I go? And so Bhagavan has given us two paths, the path of the sun, which takes us upward, or the path of the moon, which may not necessarily take us downward, but we don't progress much, and then we go back through birth and death. And so that was explained very beautifully in the 8th chapter. The 9th, of course, is the middle of the Bhagavad Gita, the most powerful chapter, where Bhagavan starts with a bang, with the highest knowledge of who God is and what is the relationship of God. But then that is very intimidating for us. So then out of compassion, the remainder of the 9th chapter gives us different upasanas, different ways how we can reach God and how we can know God. So that is the 9th. And then 10th and 11th, Arjuna asks, how can I see you everywhere? You say you are everywhere. And so Bhagavan Sri Krishna in the 10th chapter talks about, I am all the vibhutis, all the glories. Among the mountains, I am Mount Everest, Himalayas. Among the animals, I am the lion, and so on. So yat yat vibhuti mat sarvam. Wherever you see anything glorious, mama amsha, one part of me you can see. So that's how Bhagavan says in the 10th chapter. And then, of course, in the 11th chapter, Arjuna asks that you say whole world is in you. Can I please see that? Am I qualified to see it? So he requests Bhagavan, and Bhagavan gives him the Divya Drishti, the special vision which Sanjay had. Sanjay had got from Ved Vyasji. And so Arjuna is able to see the entire universe in Bhagavan, and only other person who can see is Sanjaya. On earth, of course, the rishis and the gods in heaven would be able to see that. But among the humans, Arjuna and Sanjay could see the entire universe in the form of the Lord. Not only the present, but the past, future, everything, and all the 14 worlds could be seen. And then the 12th is a very, very practical chapter where Bhagavan tells us that you can worship me with form or with formless, both. To worship me with formless is difficult if you think you are form. If you think I am this body, then better worship me as form and work as my servant. So that is what we should do, worship God and work as a servant. As we do more and more karma yoga, and as we develop detachment from the world, then we can move to the formless. But ultimately, form has to lead to formless. You cannot limit Bhagavan to just this form, because he is all forms and ultimately he is beyond form. So that was the 12th chapter. And the qualities of a bhakta are very beautifully illustrated. Adveshta sarva bhutanam maitra karuna evacha, and so on. Nirmamo nirahankara samadukha sukha kshami. So that was the 12th chapter, and we just finished the 13th chapter. The 13th chapter is the entire essence of the Upanishads. Completely, the Upanishads have been extracted and given in a very capsule form, in a very small form, in some of these verses. Bahirantascha bhutanam charama acharama vachara evacha sukshmata tada vigneyam durastham chantike chatata. It is further than the furthest. It is nearer than the nearest. It moves, but it does not move. It is neither inside nor outside. So all these contradictions are given, which we are also doing in Tuesday in the Ishavasya Upanishad. So the idea being, through the contradictions, you have to go beyond the mind, because we are prisoners of our mind and intellect, and one has to go beyond the mind and intellect to understand that. And going beyond is called intuitive knowledge. One is the intellectual knowledge. I have understood I am Brahman or I am that, but the intuitive knowledge of that I really am is the 13th chapter helps us. And there also Bhagavan has given beautiful values of one that one must practice. Throughout, Bhagavan Sri Krishna makes sure that he emphasizes that purification of mind is essential. Without a pure mind, this knowledge will not stay. You may hear it, but you will not get the full benefit of this knowledge. And so that's why he gives the values, amanitvam, adambhitvam, and so on. So now we come to the 14th chapter. The 14th chapter is actually not very popular or very famous. You know why? Because it is between two heavyweights. The 13th chapter, which gives all the Upanishads, and the 15th chapter, which talks about Purushottam. So people say, "Arey, 13th bahut acha hai, 15th bahut acha hai," and they forget 14th. But why has Bhagavan put the 14th chapter? Because it is a very practical chapter. See, we directly want to go to Brahman, but you have not done the preliminary steps. It's like you say, I want to go to master's or PhD. Arey, you haven't passed bachelor's yet. First go to college, after high school, finish your prerequisites, then you can go to master. So suddenly saying I am Brahman is okay to think that and say that, but the preliminary steps are what the 14th chapter is. So it is like, I want to go to the second floor, but I don't want to use the stairs. You're not going to reach. So the 14th chapter is the stairs, which will take us to 13th and 15th chapter. So Bhagavan has put the 14th to connect to. That's why you see the Bhagavad Gita is very, very logically and scientifically connected. So Gurudev in his introduction and also other acharyas say that why the 14th chapter is important. And what is the 14th chapter? It is the chapter of the gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. Sattva is the purity, the knowledge. Rajas is the passion and activity, and tamas is laziness. Rajas, if it is done with the sattva predominant, where my mind is sattvic, then it purifies. If it becomes tamas predominant, then it becomes selfishness. So that is why this gunas. What is the purpose of showing the gunas? It is said very well by Gurudev. He says, just as Ganga water, when it is placed in different bottles, the water is the same, but placed in a blue bottle, it looks blue. In a red bottle, it looks less red. In a fat bottle, it looks fat. In a thin bottle, it looks thin. So similarly, you and I are made of the same 5 elements, air, space, fire, water, earth. The spirituality tells us. Even science tells us we are all made of atoms, right? And atoms are what? Protons, neutrons, and electrons. Not only humans, but animals, birds, plants, fish, humans, even rocks are made of the same atoms, protons, neutrons, electrons. If we are all, the body is made of the 5 elements, made of atoms, the spirit within is the same, then why is there so much difference? Why is a cat different from a dog? Why is a dog different from a human? Even among humans, we find so much variety. There never is the same. Even the fingerprints have never been duplicated in history. Even 10,000 years back you go, Bhagavan has never copied the same fingerprint. So that is the amazing technology. Forget about the mind, the body, the intellect. Even among identical twins, we find so much difference. Even children born to the same family, one becomes an artist, one becomes a sportsman, one becomes a science, genius, and fourth does nothing. So why this difference? The same parents, the same upbringing, the same teaching. Bhagavan Sri Krishna says it is due to the gunas. Gunas are the essential nature which constitute this whole universe. So all the differences we see among people are due to gunas. And it is that which is covered in the 14th chapter. The example they give is like a doctor. You go to a doctor, right? And you say, doctor, I have these symptoms. So ordinary doctor will say, okay, you have symptoms, here, take this medicine, go, and then you go second time, third time, I'm not getting better. Then he says, okay, let's look at the cause. So a good doctor will look at the cause of the problem, and he will do some lab tests, and then you get the reports. Okay, my hemoglobin is low, my sugar is high, my cholesterol is high, so blood pressure is high. So then doctor will say, okay, these are the things you are doing wrong. Your diet, your exercise, all the things that cause all these problems, we need to eliminate. And then he will also give some necessary medicine. Say if your sugar is high, he will give you some pills or blood pressure or cholesterol, or if the diet alone doesn't help. Then the doctor will also make sure that you have become healthy. Then he will say, okay, come back in 1 month or come back in 3 months. I want to recheck your sugar, recheck your blood pressure. So he will not just leave you, okay, dawai leo jao, he will say, come back and I want to check, make sure you are healthy. And then he will show you examples of how a totally healthy person should live, how you should continue to live so that you don't fall back into your illnesses, into your bad habits. So all that is a good doctor will do. So that is what the Bhagavan Sri Krishna does in the 14th chapter, like a good doctor. First, he will tell us what is wrong with us. The ideal person is one who should remain, not ideal, but our goal should be as much as possible to remain in sattva. If we have too much rajas or too much tamas, that should be reduced and remain in sattva. So the guru can diagnose, or I myself can diagnose that I am at this moment, like now, we are all listening. Hopefully we are in sattvic. Maybe some of us might already be asleep, maybe in tamas, but majority of us are at least should be in sattva. So we can diagnose that. And Gurudev says, like a mechanic, he looks into the car. If the car is stalling, he can open the bonnet and see what is wrong with the car. Why is the car not functioning? And he can fix it, while you and I, because we don't know car mechanics, so then we have to call AAA or something like that. So Guru is the AAA that comes and diagnoses the problem and rescues us. Or this Bhagavad Gita, the book, the knowledge of the Gita is what is the Guru. So depending on what is wrong, how much sattva and rajas and tamas we have, this knowledge will help us to stay in sattva. So from ill health, which is tamas and rajas, I come to health. And then what is the qualities of a person who is healthy all the time? That is called gunatit. And that also is given in the 14th chapter. The one who has gone beyond the gunas, which is called gunatit, which in the 2nd chapter, Bhagavan called sthita prajna. Arjuna asked, sthita prajnasya ka bhasha samadhistasva keshava sthitadi kim prabhashet kim aset vrajet kim. So Bhagavan Shri Krishna told us in the 2nd chapter, and in the 14th chapter, he is repeating some of those ideas with a different twist, as what happens to a person who has gone beyond gunas. Because one should again not become so hooked upon just that I have to do this, but be beyond gunas, called gunatit. Of course, we'll talk in more detail as we get to that verse in the end of this chapter. So they say that bondage comes to one who is excessively attached to things has a lot of rajas and tamas. So how to free ourselves from bondage and how to understand the gunas and where I stand, that is the 14th chapter. It's a little long introduction, but I felt it was essential to see.
Gurudev said they are like a dials.
Yeah, Gurudev also says like they are dials in a radio, how you adjust the radio, fine tune that. So that different examples have been given. So we'll start the 14th chapter now, and let's see how many verses we can do. I was planning on doing 4, but I don't think we'll get to that. We'll be lucky if we can do 3. So Sudha, may please chant after me. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha.
Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha.
Atha Chaturdashodhyayaha.
Atha Chaturdashodhyayaha.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha.
Param Bhuyah Pravakshyami.
Param Bhuyah Pravakshyami.
Jnananam Jnanamuttamam.
Jnananam Jnanamuttamam.
Yajñatva Munaya Sarve.
Yajñatva Munaya Sarve.
Param Siddhim Ito Gataha.
Param Siddhimito Gataha.
Together. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Atha Chaturdashodhyayaha. Shri Bhagavanuvacha. Param Bhuyah Pravakshyami. Jnananam Jnanamuttamam. Yajñatva Munaya Sarve. Param Siddhimito Gataha. So, Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. We start this chapter prostrating to Bhagwan and asking for his grace and blessings. And of course, the Guru, which we chanted in the beginning. And it says, Atha, now we are doing Chatur Dashodhyaya. Dasha means 10. Chatur means 4. So 10 plus 4, 14. So it is the 14th Adhyaya chapter. And it starts directly by Shri Bhagavanuvach. We find many of the chapters of the Bhagavad Gita start with Arjuna's question. And Arjuna has a doubt, and he will in different chapters, like in the 10th, he says, I wish to see you everywhere. In the 11th, he says, I wish to see everything in you. In the 12th, he says, should I worship form or formless, which is superior? But here, there is no question. In the 13th, he says, I wish to know what is Kshetra, Kshetrajnam, Jnanam, Jneyam, and so on. So here, there is no question because Bhagwan himself feels that there are certain points I have covered in previous chapters which need repetition or need further explanation. Like he knows that in the 7th, I have said something. In the 9th, I have said something. See, you and I might have forgotten what Bhagwan said in the 7th chapter or the 9th chapter, but he remembers. Not only he remembers, but like a good teacher, he finds the right occasion. Like in the 9th chapter, Idam tute guhya tamam pravakshyam yanasuyave jnanam vijnana sahitam yad jnatva mokshase shubha. So what I am going to tell you and what is the benefit, he starts. So in the 14th chapter, he says, Shri Bhagavanuvacha, Param Bhuyah Pravakshyami. Param means the highest. Bhuya means again. Vakshyami is the future tense, I will tell. Pravakshyami, pra means prakarshena vakshyami. In great clarity, I will tell you. Pravakshyami. And what will I tell you? Jnananam is the 6th case plural. Of all knowledges, Jnanam Uttamam. Jnanam is the knowledge. Uttamam means the highest knowledge. So out of all the knowledges, I will tell you the highest knowledge. It's the science of all the knowledges. And what is the benefit of that? Why should I know it? See, Bhagwan is a good salesperson. So he will say that knowing this knowledge, what is the benefit? We all want to know. Why should I attend 14th chapter? He says, Yat Nyatva. Yat means that, Nyatva means having known. Munaya Sarve, all munis, all great munis, will talk about what is muni. Param Siddhim Itaha Gataha. Itaha becomes Ito Gataha. So Param Siddhim, they reach the highest Siddhi. Ita means after this death. But then what is after death? We will talk about that. Gataha means they are gone. So I will tell you again the highest knowledge among all the knowledges, knowing which great rishis and munis have gone beyond death. So why is Bhagavan telling again, Bhuyaha? Why? He says because of his compassion, because he knows that we have forgotten what he has talked before. He said, oh, 9th chapter, I heard many months ago, maybe last year. Abhi kahan yaad rehta hai, or 8th chapter, 7th chapters. Every chapter he recapitulates and finds particular points. So out of compassion, because what happened is this knowledge does not stay in the mind. So repetition is essential. Then he says, I will give you the supreme knowledge. But we said, Bhagavan, you said the 13th has the supreme knowledge, talking about the Brahman, what is Neyam, that is the 13th. How is this the supreme? So Gurudev and other acharyas say that the 14th chapter is not the supreme knowledge, which the 13th and the 15th have. It is the step to the supreme knowledge. Without doing this, you cannot get there. So that's why it is supreme, because it is the ladder to go to the highest. And in the scriptures, they say there are two kinds of vidyas, para and apara. The Upanishads say that very well. And para means the higher knowledge, which tells us about the highest. Apara is the preparatory knowledge. So knowledge about the world is called apara. So if you are very good in science or mathematics, you may be a Einstein, or you may be a Galileo, or you may be a Oppenheimer. Those are good. Or you may be a Steve Jobs, or you may be whoever, best in computers or best in physics or chemistry, or you may be Federer in tennis, or Joe Montana in football. All those are apara vidya, whether you are great in sports, in science, and in economics, you may be the multi-billionaire. Now Apple is worth 3 trillion. That is all apara. That is, no matter how much you accomplish in this world, it will remain apara. Not even a penny of that 3 trillion you can take to the higher. So paravidya is the higher knowledge, which tells us about. So Bhagavan Shri Krishna is telling us how from apara you can go to apara. So that is the knowledge of the 14th chapter. That is why the importance of the 14th chapter. That's why Gurudev at the end of the commentary says this is very, very practical for all seekers. Then it comes itaha. Itaha means after death. So you say, Are, after death, if this knowledge will help, why should I bother? How is it going to help me today? I want to know how I can know today. How can I benefit from this? So Shankaracharya ji says it in his Bhashya. He says, after death means after the death of the ego. So when the ego, the individuality dies, then this new seeker is born, the new master is born who can progress. So the idea is that through this knowledge, I reduce my ego, my selfishness, connect with the totality, connect with the Lord within, and go beyond the ego. So death of the ego is the death of this individuality, that I think I am this limited individual. I am separate from her and him, and I like him and I don't like him. All that is ego. Once the ego is reduced, one is able to see the oneness, the totality in all. Another Sanskrit term I would like to introduce, I think we had talked about it in the Thursday class. Everybody knows the Sadhan Chatushtaya, the 4 qualities of a seeker: Vivek, Vairagya, Shat Sampatti, and Mumukshutva. We won't go over that. But there is another term called Anubandh Chatushtaya, Anubandha Chatushtaya, which you will find that each book in the beginning, the first verse will have that. Majority of the books. Some of them may do it in the first few shlokas. But there are 4 factors. Before I study a book, before I pick up a book, I must know these 4 factors called Vishaya, Adhikari, Sambandha, and Prayojanam. Before we come to 14 chapters, say I want to go to the Bahamas for a vacation, right? So they say Manubandha Chatushtaya, all 4 will be there. Because what is the Vishaya? I'm going for 2 weeks, So what is the Vishaya? What is the goal? Bahamas. I want to go to Bahamas. Who is the Adhikari? Adhikari is one who has 2 weeks vacation and he has enough money in the bank so he can, enjoy for 2 weeks, So that is the Adhikari. He is only qualified. If you have no money or you don't have vacation, you can't go. Then what is the Sambandha? How can I enjoy the Bahamas? So then you decide, how am I going to travel? Am I going to take a cruise or am I going to go by plane between different islands? So that becomes the Sambandha and Prayojanam. And what is the purpose of my going? To enjoy, enjoy life. At least 2 weeks, I have a great time. If you come back and the weather was bad and then your, hotel was bad and then the power went out, then you say, I didn't have any fun. Maja nahi aaya. 2 weeks I went, I didn't enjoy. So those are that for that particular trip. So for this particular text called the 14th chapter, what is the Anubandha Chatushtaya? What is the Vishaya? Vishaya is Brahma Vidya, the highest knowledge, Param, the highest knowledge is the Jnanam, Jnananam, Jnanam Uttamam. That is the Vishaya. Who is the Adhikari? So Bhagavan says, Munaya. Munaya means contemplative sages who have contemplated upon this. So this knowledge should not only be listened, and one should then read the book, if you have the Gurudev's commentary, read it, and then think about it. How does this apply in my life? And then bring it into practice. So Munis are contemplative sages called Manana Shilavan iti Muni, those who contemplate. So those are, and you and I are also Adhikaris because we are sitting here, we are here to listen, we are sincere. So we should think that we are qualified. And what is the Sambandha? How can I connect to this knowledge? So Bhagavan says in the second line, Yad Jnatva, having known it from a teacher, that will connect me to this knowledge. So either the book or the teacher or the discourses or, wherever on YouTube, so many acharyas have talked. So you can listen to these commentaries. So that is called Yad Jnatva Param Siddhim Ita Gataha. That is the Prayojanam. That is the goal that I must reach the highest Siddhi, the highest achievement. Siddhi, people think Siddhi means a power, you can walk on water, or you can put your hand and make things appear, or you can read people's mind, or you can see beyond walls. No, those are not Siddhis. The highest Siddhi is to know my oneness with God. That is the highest Siddhi. That is higher than anything, because any other Siddhis can come and go, but this one never goes. That's why there is that famous bhajan, Payoji Maine Ram Ratan Dhan Payo. Everybody must have heard that beautiful bhajan. And in that Mirabai says, Kharchana Khute Vako, Chor na Lute, Dina Dina Badhata Savayo. He says this knowledge of Bhagwan Shri Ram, this Ram Ratan, this jewel of his name that I have got, nobody can steal it from me. This knowledge of the 14th chapter, once you have, Chorana Lute, nobody can steal it. And Dina Dina Badhata Savayo, and the more you contemplate upon this knowledge, or the more you repeat Bhagwan Shri Ram's name, or any God's name, the more this knowledge becomes. So it's not kharachena kuta. It's not that by teaching this knowledge, you will lose it. No, you will actually gain more because you are, again and again thinking about those thoughts. So the more you dwell on these thoughts, they say you just drown yourself in the Bhagavad Gita. Just take yourself and soak yourself so that the Bhagavad Gita should go through you. Not I should go through Bhagavad Gita. Gurudev has said that. So that is how clear this knowledge should be. And that's what Bhagavan says, Pravakshyami. I will tell you clearly, not leaving any doubts. So when we communicate, that's what Bhagavan does throughout the Bhagavad Gita. Everything is very clearly explained, not leaving any doubts. And if Arjuna has any question, Bhagavan very patiently answers. He doesn't say, Arey, I already told you so many times in the 7th chapter, 9th chapter, again you are asking. No, he says, as many times you ask, I will answer. So clarity of communication is very important. Otherwise, you can get into trouble. Talking about clarity, this man was traveling in Europe. He had gone on a business trip for 2 weeks, and he was in Italy and Rome and all those places. And he sends an email to his wife, and he says, after 2 weeks, I'm having a wonderful time. Wish you were here. How they write, oh, I wish you were here to enjoy with me. But he forgot to put the last E at the end. So he said, having a wonderful time, wish you were her. Mar gaya. When he came home, the fireworks he got was more than 4th of July and January 1st put together. So it's very important to, before you send an email or a text, to check it carefully. You can get. So that's why Bhagavan says, Pravakshyami, I will tell you clearly, so that you can also reach the same heights that are reached by munis or by great seekers, the great scholars. So now again, Bhagavan says, what is the value? What is the benefit? We all want to know what is the benefit of this knowledge and how will it change my life? So in shloka number 2, Bhagavan again emphasizes why we should study this knowledge, and those who have studied it, how have they benefited? Like same thing, you can go to a doctor and say, this medicine, how will it benefit me? So doctor can say, okay, you can Google it. This is the reference, or he can give you the article that this medicine has been used by many people and it has benefited them. So here also Bhagavan is quoting that what has happened to people who have done this knowledge before. So verse number 2, idam jnanamupashritya
Idam jnanamupashritya
mama sadharmyam agataha
mama sadharmyam agataha
sarge pinopajayante
sargepi nopajayante
pralayena vyathanti cha.
pralayena vyathanti cha.
Together, idam jnanamupashritya mama sadharmyam agataha sarge pinopajayante pralayena vyathanti cha. So Bhagavan says, idam jnanam. Idam means this knowledge that I am about to convey to you, which I have told in the past, but I am repeating. Ashritya means taking refuge. Upa ashritya means getting very close to this knowledge and taking refuge in this knowledge, taking shelter. So what it means is that one has to sit near a guru, near a teacher, and make this knowledge my own knowledge. It should not remain as far away knowledge as knowledge of Bhagavan Sri Krishna or Gurudev Swami Chinmayananda or some acharyas, but it should become my knowledge. I should know it. So upa ashritya means sitting very close to this knowledge and taking shelter under this knowledge. Then what will happen if I come close to this knowledge, if I understand this knowledge? If I take shelter, Bhagavan says, Mama sadharmyam. Mama means mine. Sadharmyam means they come close to my dharma. Sa means with. Dharmam means close to my dharma, with my dharma. Agataha. Agataha means they have come to me and become one with me. Sadharma agataha. Agataha means they have come. It is the plural tense, plural number. And then what happens? He says, okay, if I come close to you, Bhagavan, become one with you, then what will happen? Sarge. Sarga means creation. Sarge api. Even during creation, na upajayante. They are not born again. They are not created. Even there may be the creation. You know, the whole creation happened. They go beyond rebirth. And how about death? See, we don't worry so much about rebirth. We don't know, but we worry about death. You know, how will my death be? Will I have a horrible death? Will I suffer? Will I be miserable? So Bhagavan says, Pralaye na yathanti cha. Cha means and. Pralaye is the seventh case. At the time of death, in death, na vyathanti. They are not disturbed. They are not agitated. They do not suffer death. You say, do you mean they never die? No. Bhagavan says death happens to everybody, but na vyathanti. The death does not bother them. So we already said the benefit is that you can become one with me. Mama sadharmya agataha, having understood this knowledge. So this dharma, so we say, oh, Bhagavan Shri Krishna was Hindu. So we mean we should all become Hindu? No. My dharma, when Bhagavan Shri Krishna mentions, it's not which religion he belongs to as Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Jew, not that. Dharma has two meanings in this case. One is saguna, as form, adharam, madhuram, hasitam, madhuram, nayanam, madhuram. You know, we have heard that, madhuradipate rakhilam madhuram. So as form, we see Bhagavan Shri Krishna as sweet, as beautiful, and you soak yourself in his beauty. You know, nayanam madhuram. He speaks, his speech is beautiful, his eyes are beautiful, his walk is beautiful, his talk is beautiful. Everything is sweet. Madhuradipate akhilam madhuram is totally sweet. That is the Sagun Brahma. So you worship God with form. In Nirgun Brahma, what is his dharma? Sat Chit Anand. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. The Upanishad says, Satya means truth, Jnanam means the Chit, the knowledge, and Ananta means infinite bliss or happiness. So one who understands this knowledge and applies that takes a significant step in reaching me. And again, as we said, this is preparatory for the highest knowledge. And why are we not able to know? We say God is everywhere, right? God is everywhere. Everything is God. Whatever we are looking around is God. Within me is God. Outside is God. Why don't we know that? Because of ignorance. Ajnanam is our biggest obstacle. That's why Bhagavan Shri Krishna in the Gita says, Nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitram iha vidyate. There is no greater purifier than knowledge. So this Bhagavad Gita will remove my ajnanam and bring jnanam, will remove my ignorance and bring knowledge and make me understand what is my true nature. That's what the Upanishad tell us, Tat Tvam Asi, you are that. When they say you are that, we think God is somewhere there, but we understand God is everywhere. He is within and without, and he is my essence. That's what Bhagavan says. Mama Dharmya, what is Bhagavan's essence? When Bhagavan says I, he does not only mean I as the son of Devaki and Vasudev, but I as the total consciousness. He identifies with the total Brahman. So he says that is my essence, and you can also experience my essence because it is your essence also. We all are that. We all are. It's not that sometime in the future I will become Brahman, or I will become that, or I will reach that, or in that life. Right now we are that. And that is the essence of this knowledge. All we have to do is to wake up to it. Right now we are asleep. Right now we are in the sleep of ignorance. So through this knowledge, you wake up. That's why he says, so many famous songs, why are you sleeping? Bhor uthi musafir jag. He says, oh, you traveler on this world, the sun is already rising. Wake up and, see the knowledge. Wake up and understand. So that's what he says. So, so that is what he says. Wake up, man ki aankhein khol, Baba. He said, open the eyes of your mind, which are sleeping in ignorance. Ignorance does not mean that we don't know. We may know a lot about the world. We may be a great scientist or a great scholar or have read a lot of books, or I can talk about all the world affairs and the current affairs and all the politics. But I know nothing about spirituality. So the teachers say, if you have not reached the truth, your trip is wasted. This opportunity that Bhagwan gave you, this human birth comes after 84 lakh yoni, after 8.4 million births. We are lucky to get human birth. And Shankaracharya ji says in Vivek Chudamani, to have human birth, to have intellect, to have guru, and to have the scriptures and to have faith is very, very rare. So do not waste this opportunity. People think next life, how do we know I'll even be born human? I don't know how many lives I may have to go through again to be born as a human. So do not waste this opportunity and come to my birth. And then the benefit is, then I do not go through cycle of rebirth. Because why am I born as a human? Of course, I have progressed through all the lower yonis, but my birth at this moment is due to vasanas and karmas, unfulfilled desires and karmas that I have not got the fruit, not got the result. So vasanas can be reduced when we practice this chapter and remain more and more in sattva. My selfish desires will be reduced. And also karmas that are done unselfishly, that we have heard in the third chapter, unselfish activities dedicated to God, then slowly you do not have any desire for karma phala. I'm not doing this so that I may get something. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. I'm doing it because it is my opportunity to serve. I am paying my gratitude to nature and to Bhagwan because I have got so much from the world, especially in this country. We are blessed. We get so much. So I'm doing service just to pay back my debt to Bhagwan. So when I practice those two things, do karma yoga and then do without selfishness and live my mind in sattva, and slowly my vasanas are reduced, my selfish karmas are reduced, then my desire to take further births is gone, because then I have gone beyond. That is in the end of the 14th chapter, he'll say, how does a Gunatit live? Gunatit, who has gone beyond gunas, then there is no need for him to be born again. So he goes beyond birth. He said, okay, birth, but how about death? Death is, I'm so afraid of dying. I'm so scared. I don't know when I will die. I don't know how I will die. So they say that a person who has gone to this knowledge goes beyond death. So what do we mean by beyond death? See, death happens to who? To the body, right? That happens to the body. The subtle body, the gross body dies and it is cremated or buried. The subtle body travels to other worlds and then takes another birth and so on. But with this knowledge, you may not have another birth. But how about this person's death? So they say that death is miserable for those who are very strongly identified with the body. If you think I am the body, then death will be sorrowful. Why? Because, oh, now how am I going to leave my spouse? Or how am I going to leave my children or my grandchildren? Or, oh, to theek hai, how about my property? I have all these houses. I have a house in Bakersfield, one on the coast and one in here. How am I going to leave all that? My bank balance, my 401k, I worked so hard my whole life to accumulate. How am I going to leave all? My dog, how am I going to leave? That is one of the biggest attachments. So I know some of the people are laughing. Probably your children have dogs. So the thing is that all these attachments are very hard to leave for a person who is bodily attached. And that's what they say, that your death will be miserable if you are attached to this body. Even though you may be in a coma, but the subtle body will have a very difficult time leaving because you can't leave it. That's why we do the 13 days of, on the 13th day, we tell the soul, okay, now you can go on your journey, the subtle body. In fact, they describe yogis who were totally unattached to their body. And at the last, I heard about one yogi and I was reading about her, and she was around 85, 86. And she said, my time has come. And so what she did, she just went into meditation and then just left effortlessly. She just dropped the body without any illness, without any sorrow. She just said, oh, time ho gaya, I'm done. And then the body just fell and she was gone. So, and same thing with Mirabai. Mirabai at the end, I think I have repeated that story. When her time came, she went into this Krishna temple. I think I've told that before. And she disappeared. And not only her subtle body disappeared, her gross body merged with the elements. And when the people went into the temple, they only found her clothes. Even her body was not there. So these great yogis, for them, death is effortless. For you and me, if we are very attached to the body, that I am this body and I do everything for fulfilling this body, then such a person has great agitation. So they say, live the life that I am the spirit, use the body for function, but do not be attached to it. Another thing they describe in the commentary, Gurudev mentions and other acharyas mention, that birth and death is not only of the body, but also of the vrittis, of thoughts in the mind. Like I am hungry, so I become a hungry person. Then I eat something, I have some pizza, now I am satisfied, now I'm very happy. Then the hungry person which was born is died. Or I become angry with somebody. So an angry person is born. And then, after a while, hopefully the anger will die. So the angry person dies. So at every moment, there are vrittis, thoughts coming, angry thoughts, happy thoughts, or sad thoughts. I have some sad thing happened and somebody passed away. And, then slowly I get over that sorrow. So this sad person was born, dies. So a person who has gone beyond this body identification also goes beyond mind identification, where in the mind, he can watch the vrittis. Okay, now an angry person is born, angry person will die, hungry person is born, hungry will die, sad person is born. So in joy and sorrow, or in heat and cold, or in success and failure, he or she is able to remain the same. Sama shatra ucha mitrecha tatha mana manayoho shitoshna sukha dukkheshu sama sangha vivarjitaha. So such a person remains equanimous, not that he doesn't feel the heat or doesn't feel the cold or joy and sorrow. He's not like a rock or like a statue, but he understands that these variations will happen. Body will go through changes, mind and intellect, but he remains beyond. So he goes beyond. He knows that death will happen to the body. Bhagavan already said in the second chapter, Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityu, dhruva janma mritasya tasya apariharyete natvam shochitum arhasi. He says, whatever is born is bound to die, and whatever dies will be born again. But this is inevitable. Aparihare arthe natvam shochitum arhasi. So do not be sad about your death or anybody else's death. Not that you should not. If somebody has died, you feel sorrow for a while. And if somebody, a close friend or a family member, you go express sympathy. But you know that that is the inevitable fate of everybody. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityu. It is determined. Whoever is born, even Bhagwan himself, when he came as Bhagwan Sri Krishna or Sri Rama, when his time came, he left the body. He didn't say that I'm going to live here forever. No. My kaam khatam ho gaya. When Bhagwan Ram's work was finished, when Bhagwan Krishna's work was finished, they left the body. So Gurudev in his commentary also says that the mind is like plays a lot of tricks. See, mind can be our friend or mind can be our enemy. Mana e manushyanam karanam bandha moksha yoho. So he says mind can be your friend or mind can be your enemy. The mind which is excessively attached to objects becomes like an enemy, because all the time I'm thinking, I wanted, this, mine, yours. So the mind is always playing the song of objects. How can I get it? How, if I have it, how can I get more? If I don't have it and somebody else has it. So all those kama, krodha, all those arise. So Gurudev says that this chapter will help us to reduce the problems that the mind can create, because he says a mind which is attached becomes an enemy. So what are the tricks an enemy can play? One should know, like when you are playing chess, you know, how a chess player thinks 10 moves ahead. You know, you and I, if we learn, you say, okay, this move or that, but he knows 10 moves ahead. If I do this, he will do that, and she will. So they can think ahead. So similarly, a wise person can know and predict that, okay, now this situation has come. Now my mind could become happy or my mind could become sad, and he accepts them. Okay, that is the state of the mind, but he does not let the mind overtake him, does not let the mind make him miserable. So this is what we have studied today. I think the time is up, and basically we have done the introduction of the 14th chapter, and then Bhagavan Sri Krishna has briefly mentioned the gunas, because in the 13th chapter he also says, Purusha prakritisto hi bhungte prakriti chan gunan karanam guna sangosya sadasad yoni janmashu. So he says Purusha becomes the enjoyer, even though Purusha is actually the supreme self, spirit, but getting caught in Prakriti, he gets attached and becomes the enjoyer. One is the experiencer. Experiences will be there, but whether you let the experience make you an enjoyer or a sufferer, joys and sorrows will come to everybody, but do I become an enjoyer or a sufferer? No, I am neither. I am the Atma. The body may be going through problems, the mind may be going through problems, but I am beyond all. So that understanding, when it comes, then such a person goes beyond. And that's what Bhagavan says, that by getting this knowledge, which is the stepping stone to the highest knowledge, wise people have reached me, and that is the goal. And then such an individual remains the same through birth and death, not only his final birth and death, but in life, different births and deaths happen. Like a flower is born, and then flower dies for a fruit to be born. A fruit dies to a seed to be born. A seed dies to another plant to be born. So this birth and death is going on constantly, and one who understands that knows that that is the cycle of creation, and birth and death is inevitable. Yeah, the next two shlokas are totally dealing with creation, how this world was created and what is the cause of creation and the exact method of creation, which he has talked in 7th chapter also and in other chapters also, but he will expand on that. And then after that, the 5th shloka, he will start about gunas. And then the rest of the chapter is devoted to gunas. And then at the end, who is gunatit, who has gone beyond gunas. So that is the sequence of this chapter. We have time. If anybody has any questions or comments, about what we have covered or anything else if you wish to bring up, please feel free to do that. If you have any comments about this, actually, I would recommend everybody, please read Gurudev's commentary. It is masterful. His commentary on this 14th chapter. He has spent a lot of pages on each shloka, 4 or 5 pages. And what I covered is very much in brief, but if you really want to see it, please read Gurudev's commentary. In fact, every Sunday, what you should do in the evening, if you can, before you go to bed, just pick up Gurudev's book. You know, if you have this book, please do it. If you don't have it, please, you can buy it, or we have it in the office. I think we just ordered, more copies will be coming. And every day, please read Gurudev's commentary. Either you can read before you come to the class or read after, either way, so that this knowledge will become clear. And Gurudev's language is masterful. I am not able to anyway come close to it. So please read it, and then you will benefit from it. So next week, we'll talk about creation. Thank you very much. Anybody has any questions or comments, please feel free to add. Go ahead, Kusum. Yeah.
I just want to, you explained beautifully the chapter, but Guruji says that this chapter is a practical guide to understand the working of the mind.
Good.
And this understanding itself provides the tips of mind management, which we have so many seminars nowadays for mind management. So this chapter is very practical. And the perfection is what we achieve by practicing this course of mind management. So this is how very practical this is. So the subject is the mind management and result is the perfection. So this is the gist of the whole chapter. And Bhagwan Shri Krishna ji will tell us how to do this and go beyond and achieve the perfection. So this is very practical for us. So it's very important chapter, according to Guruji.
Thank you, Kusum. Very well said. Very nicely said that Guruji says this is mind management. It is a seminar in mind management. Very practical. Thank you. Thank you for it. So you can tune your mind to the higher. Very well. Thank you.
So the mind management, I understand. So the explanation of 3 gunas, how does that come into the mind management and the thoughts management?
Yeah, that will be is the subject of the whole 14th chapter. But the idea is that tamas is laziness and rajas is activity, but can be selfish activity. Sattva is purity.
Okay.
So when my mind remains as much as possible in sattva, in knowledge and purity, then it will be less in the other things. So that is how you keep your mind peaceful. Otherwise, if I have too much rajas, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to go here. So the mind remains disturbed. So the mind in sattva is pure, and then ultimately is to go even beyond sattva to enlightenment. So
And
that
what
is
is
the
the
technique of mind management. So they say from tamas, laziness, you go to rajas. They say that one Mahatma said, if don't do anything, at least go rob a bank. You are sleeping and doing nothing, go and rob a bank at least. So means from tamas, at least you have come to rajas. Not that he's encouraging you to rob, but at least you do something. Don't just sit there. And then from rajas, then they say, one is don't just sit there, do something. Then sattva is don't do something, just sit there. Don't do something just for the sake of doing it. Do what is required, but sit in silence. So that is in brief.
Inactivity and unactivity.
Yeah, unactivity and inactivity. Inactivity is laziness. Unactivity is staying in wisdom. So that is in 2 sentences, mind management, but the whole 14th chapter talks about that.
Okay. And I know you're going to discuss in next 2 shlokas, but what is the importance of creation in this chapter at this point? You will discuss that, I know.
Because
in
the
next.
whole creation is made up
It's a
of
mind.
Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. The Prakriti has 3 gunas. So the whole creation is made up of Sattva, Rajas. So proportion may be different. So it is depending on the coffee. Coffee is made up of sugar, milk and coffee, right? So proportion can be different. right? Everybody's coffee is different. The same way, each one of us has these three gunas. So which one
Okay.
is predominant is for us to not to look at my husband or my, son or anything. It's for us to recognize within ourselves which one is predominant and which one is. So that is why this is for self-analysis.
Okay,
So that is
thank you.
Yeah, as
Perfect.
Neeru said, creation is of the three gunas. Prakriti is made
That
of
is
three
what
gunas.
he will explain in the
Yeah, will be
next two.
explained in the next two
Okay.
shlokas.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the mind is made of these three gunas, and
Yeah.
mind is inert. That's why this whole chapter is to
Yes.
see what is mind, what is the function of it, how you know it,
Yeah.
what is it made of, and tuning the mind and transcending. Those are the steps. That's why they have to introduce from the beginning to saying what is mind. Mind is made of all this creation, is nothing but the mind. It's
Yes.
inert. So that's why I think it has to, Lord Krishna is a very good teacher. He tells you from the beginning, then stepwise up, not in the middle. That's what I understand.
Thank you so much. Thank you both. Yeah, so the mind is inert, but it is the spirit that illumines. And so the combination of spirit and matter is creation, which we'll talk about next
I know
week.
that's what they are going to explain in that how the spirit enveloped with the
Matter,
matter
right.
creation happens. It's the combination of two. It cannot on one, just the matter cannot just create on its own. It's like you put pieces of bricks, something will not come out of it. You need an efficient cause there. So spirit has to, so the combination of two, not
Right.
combine, but they have to come together. That's why Gurudev called this like, they cannot, but they have.
They cannot. It's called an unholy wedlock, he
Yeah.
says. They actually cannot be together, but yet they are together.
For this multiplicity
Yeah.
or for this creation to happen.
Apparently together. That's how.
Yeah, superimposition has to have a substratum for it.
Yeah,
Yes.
Well,
More
I had
details.
superimposition as one of my points, but we didn't get to it, but we'll do it next week. Satish Bhai, any comments you have?
The one thing that comes to me is that the most common question people ask every day is, why do I need to know this?
Right.
And Bhagwan Shri Krishna succinctly answered those questions in these first two verses, right? Number one, the sages reached perfection.
Mhm.
That's why.
Right.
And number two, when creation happens, you are not born. And when the destruction occurs, you are not disturbed,
Right.
right? So I mean, how much more explanation does one need? I mean, I would just say refer to number one, number two. 14,
I think that's what they say. No? You need God's grace.
Right.
So
Exactly.
this is His grace that we are all listening to.
No doubt about it. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And he also comes back in chapter 17 to talk about this again.
Right.
So about gunas.
Gunas again. And even in 18th.
18th also.
18th also, correct, yes.
18,
Right.
17, 18, all three.
Exactly, right. So see, he tells us over and over and over again why we need this. And it's amazing, just simply amazing.
And each chapter covers different aspect of the gunas. It's not the
Yes.
same thing, but how these gunas work. And so different viewpoints of these gunas are explained. It's not the same idea is repeated. Gunas are covered in extensive detail in
Yes.
the three chapters, 14, 17, and 18, because that is very necessary for us, very important, very practical, as Kusum
Because
said.
that's our worldly nature
Right.
that talks about, that you are stuck in this hole, and you need to get out of it. So he talks about it over and over again to let us know where we are. and where we should be. So, anyways, thank you. You explained it
Thank
very
you.
well.
There is one question that came on the chat. They want me to re-explain the two meanings of dharma. Mama dharma, Bhagavan Sri Krishna says. So one is the Sagun Brahma, one is the Nirgun Brahma. So Sagun Brahma means Brahman with form. So here we have form of Sri Krishna playing the flute, very beautiful eyes, Adharam, Madhuram, and so on, or Sri Rama, with the bow and arrow, or Mother Saraswati playing the veena, or Jesus, on the cross. So the visible manifestations, what we call as Sagun Brahman, that is one of the dharmas. So that is one aspect of Bhagavan Sri Krishna, which we can identify with that, how beautifully he lived his life, or how Sri Rama did his duty irrespective of all the problems he came. He how much problems he went through, but he never deviated from his dharma. So we can learn how to live in dharma by seeing the lives of these masters, or how Jesus, even when he was going through all that, he still asked God to forgive them. So seeing the lives of these masters, Tukaram and Mirabai, and all of these people, how many problems they had, and still then did not deviate. Why? Because their mind was fixed on God, but God with form. So that is one dharma. Then God's other nature is formless, which we call Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma, truth, existence, consciousness, and bliss, or infinitude. Anantam, it is infinite. Only infinite can be bliss. So Bhagwan's dharma can be Sagun or Nirgun. Dharma here does not mean his duty, but his nature, the essence of his being. So it can be form or formless. But Bhagavan Sri Krishna says, either you can worship me with form or formless, but if you worship me with form, do not limit me that only this form is. See my Virat Roop, my cosmic form. So that's why in the 11th chapter, Bhagavan Sri Krishna shows us that I am everything. Everything is in me. That is. So you can see God as one, or you can see as many. And it is good to have one Ishta Devta. You should not keep switching. That 1 year you worship Lord Shiva, and then Lord Shiva say, I didn't get enlightenment, and I switch to Ganesha or Krishna. Find one form that you love, that you can relate with, connect with it 100%, soak yourself in it, lose yourself in it, and then ultimately see that as all. So that is called dharma. That means my true nature, essential nature. One is with form and one is without form. So that is, thank you for asking the question. So that is the answer.
Suryo bhati na chandra tarakam nema vidyado bhati kutoyam agnihi tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam tasya bhasa sarvamidam vibhati.
Om Shri Krishna Chandra Bhagavan ki jai. Now we'll do Chinmay Aarti.
Can't hear anything.
बोलिए श्री सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय। कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यद्यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि। नारायणायेति समर्पयामि। सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ असतो मा सद्गमय, तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय, मृत्योर्मामृतं गमय। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम। So thank you. Hari Om. We'll see you next Sunday.
Hari.